Right up next is a gear review on Technics SL1900. As far as I can tell, these were manufactured somewhere around 1977. You know, there's not a lot of, I couldn't find a lot of like definitive information on Technics turntables, believe it or not. So I don't know when these were made. I found 1977. I'm sure this model spanned a couple of years, but I have no idea what those years may have been. So if I'm going to say 1977, fully automatic turntable, servo controlled direct drive, so it's not quartz locked. Dimensions and weight were not listed. I couldn't find anything out there about it. I wasn't going to weigh and measure this, but I will tell you that it is on the smaller side. If you were to compare this to, I have a 1650 that I'm doing a review video on over, sometime over the next couple of days. Plus, or if you compare it to a 1200 or something like that, this is a smaller turntable. Series information, again, limited. I did manage to find one 1977 brochure catalog. The number of tables was insane. When I looked over the brochure from 1977, I'll say that there were 4 tiers, and this belonged to what I will call the lost tier. And really, I think you can even split that tier into 2 tiers, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. But you had, so you had the no tone arm, or just the turntable, right? Just the motor and the plinth models. Those were the SL1000, SP10, SL110, and SL120. You had the Mark II series turntables, the SL1300, SL1400, SL1500. I'm sure they sold an SL1200, but I could not find it in the product catalog. You had the turntables that were similar to the 1200 series, but they had controls that were laid out differently. The 1800, 1700, 1600, 1950, 1800, 1700, 1600, 1650. And the 1650 was a stacker. I'm working on one of those right now. Then you had kind of this the lost models. As far as I could tell, you had the 2000, the 1900, and the 1950 were kind of similar. And then entry-level tables like the SL23 and the SL20. So, and I'm sure there were more models. I don't know. Technics was kind of out of control at that point in time. So, find a turntable from Technics, in the late 70s, according to what you like and what functions you want. You can find one, depending upon your personal preferences. So aesthetically, this is a Technics turntable. Kind of lost in the crowd, as I had mentioned. This was kind of the lost models, the lost product range in that massive list of different types of better known turntables. I would say this is closer to an SL23 or 20 than like an SL1200. So this is definitely like on the lower end, more entry level table, maybe a slight step up from an entry level, but to me it seems very, very similar to an entry level like SL23. Operation, easy. Techniques are easy. Techniques are great turntables. So the functions on this, and I'll get into that in a minute, but the functions on this, very, very simple. You have a speed selector, so it's either off, basically, off, 33 or 45. You have 2 pitch controls. You have a start and stop. You have a size selector. You have a memory repeat, so you can repeat whatever you want, the record as many times as you want. Tone arm elevator, anti-skate, counterweight, turntable, gosh man, if I could think, head shell. It's been a long afternoon. I've been fighting with my robot vacuum for the last 30 minutes. It's not working, and it's kind of scrambled my brain. So operation easy, serviceability on all of these turntables. Every Techniques I've ever worked on, they have been pretty easy to sort out and easy to service. I have referred to the Technics turntable as the Toyota Camry of turntables. They're fairly reliable. They just run and run and run and run and run. It's not to say you don't have to repair them occasionally. It's not to say they don't have issues. But odds are if a Technics turntable crosses my bench, I will be able to get it sorted out. And I will be able to get it sorted out quickly. This was no exception. The 1650 was no exception. In fact, I've only had one Technics turntable where it just did not want to work. And I've fixed dozens of Technics turntables. Right? And I can't even say fix. I've sorted out, serviced, minor repairs to dozens of Technics turntables. So serviceability on these is easy. They're fairly reliable. They're very robust turntables. Even the lower end turntables seem to work very well. Common issues on this particular series of Technics turntables, and I'm lumping in like the SL23 with that and similarly kind of laid out turntables. The most common issue you're going to run into is a speed issue, a speed stability issue. The pots get dirty, right? So when you put it to 33, you might get erratic speed. Even if you go to adjust it, you might get wild swings in speed. These potentiometers get dirty. You have to clean them with some contact cleaner. Same thing with the 1650 I just did. So that's very, very common on all Technics turntables. I don't know of any other issue with Technics turntables besides speed issues. I mean, I don't know that I've ever had to. I think the one Technics turntable that I could not repair, if I remember correctly, some of them suffer from cracked gears around the spindle shaft. They used white nylon for some of the gears and some of the levers and some of the parts to the auto function mechanism underneath. And that white nylon, after so many years, will shrink and it will crack. Now, I think the Technics turntable that I could not repair, it had that gear that was broken. Plus, I believe someone had either hit the turntable. There was some stuff that was damaged underneath. And I just could not get it sorted out. And then I think I may have had one with the motor issue where the motor was just crazy. It would not, and it was a quartz lock. So it would not, I could not figure that one out. But by far the most common issue on these types of Technics turntables are those speed stability issues. So if you're looking to pick one of these up, what are some things you should look out for? Cosmetic completeness. Chances are, if the platter spins, if the platter spins, you can probably sort it out. Now, if the platter's not moving, then it's a different issue. But if the platter spins and the speed is erratic, you can probably sort it out. So I would look to see if the platter even moves. And these aren't known to have platters that freeze up. You know, they don't have grease on them or anything like that would harden after so many years. So if the platter's not moving, that's a motor issue. I mean, it could be a control issue. It could be a pitch control that's dirty, but I haven't seen it to where they don't move, it just being a simple pitch control. Not to say it can't be that. There may be some chips that these use. I'm not real sure about this particular model. These may use some ICs, and those ICs may fail, so it could also be a chip issue, I suppose. But again, I would look to make sure the platter's spinning, and then I would just, is it complete? How does it look? Is it clean? Does it have the dust cover? Is the dust cover trashed? Does it have a head shell? Does it have all the parts and pieces? Does it have all the levers to all the knobs? Right, all of that stuff. How are the feet? Those types of issues, or those types of things are things that could cause you issues in terms of repairing the turntable, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So functionality, completeness, dust cover, right, the condition of the plastic, and all of those types of things. Prices on these were all over the place. You know, it's a lower end Technics turntable. I was kind of surprised by the range of prices. They sold anywhere from $120 to $450. And for this particular like model range or turntables that are similar to this, $450 seems like a crazy price to me. It's just not a $450 turntable. The problem is I found more than one sale where people were paying around $400 for these. So maybe my impression of these turntables is off. There were a ton of sales. There were probably two. I think when I checked today, there were two that were over $400. The vast majority of the sales, though, they fell in the $200 to $300 range. So like 250-ish, I guess, if I probably averaged all of those sales out, kind of the typical turntable, the typical SL1900 would sell for about $250. Turntables that were listed for parts are not working were less than 150, again, as low as 120 all the way up to 450. Honestly, I don't know how the one or two that sold at 450 sold for that much. Again, I don't think this is, I think those were anomalies, to be honest with you. I would say that probably $300 for one of these in really good condition, maybe a little over $300 would be the top end. Again, I would put most of these at $200 to $250, and then for parts less than 150, like $125. I can't see these going for 450. Again, there were some sales though, so maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Again, when I look at these, I'm looking at the pricing on these through the lens of a guy that lives in near Omaha, Nebraska. So things are more reasonably priced. And I'm also looking through, the lens of a guy that is looking to pick one of these up to service it and then sell it and make a little bit of money, right? So I am biased in that respect. But I'll give the buyers on eBay the benefit of the doubt. So let's say $400 for one of these in great condition, $250 for a typical turntable. So this one is not in great condition. The dust cover's kind of smudged. It has some cracks. I mean, it's cleaned up pretty well, but it's not a museum piece. It's not, it hasn't been recapped or anything like that. It functions flawlessly. It sounds great. No major issues with it. So this would be right at that $250 price range. And then, low end parts units, ones that you might want to repair, $150, $125, somewhere around there. Again, I know I'm not droning on like I normally do about some of these products, but what else can you say about a Technics turntable? They're just reliable. You can find one in your price range. If you only want to spend $200, you can get one that's going to be reliable and it's going to work. If you want to spend $2,000, you can get one that's going to be reliable and it's going to work. It's going to sound great. So, I can't speak highly enough about Technics turntables. I don't own one. I've owned them in the past. I've liked them. I just like, it's the 80s aesthetic that I think gets me with Technics turntables. I like the more traditional, or I like turntables with wooden bases, and I love Denons, and Denons are great turntables. They have the big plinth and it's rosewood and it's real fancy looking, or old Pioneers or like Thorens or ARs. Techniques, it just looks like every other turntable from that time period, right? I mean, literally, I just went through how many different models of Techniques, and they all kind of have similar design cues. So, but that's not, again, other than the aesthetic thing about Technics turntables, I can't say anything bad about them. They're great turntables, absolutely great. So, I think I'm going to wrap it up for the review on the Technics SL1900. There will be a service video on this released at some point. I don't know if it's before or after, but be on the lookout for it if you are interested in what that looks like on this. The only thing I didn't do was the platter spindle, because typically I don't on these Technics tables because I don't really need it. So, I'm going to wrap it up. As always, if you like what you see, like, hit, subscribe. Catch you in the next one.